What happened? I painted a thing.
Illustrations by Pete.
We're good now. I almost forgot that. Have you ever seen the YouTube videos and they're like, oh, I did this, guess what happened? I don't know what... I drew a thing. That's what I do on the channel. Every video, I'm drawing a thing. So that's what I did. I drew a thing. Now, what I'm about to do isn't always the best thing to do. So I'm going to take acrylic paint. I'm taking the acrylic wash. It's acrylic paint. It's just not glossy. So this is going to be okay to do this with the acrylic paint on paper, but not if you were putting it on gesso. Gesso seals off the actual substrate that you're putting it on, and so it sticks to the gesso in that instance. It's a polymer based, it sticks to the gesso. When you water it down too much, it breaks that apart. It completely breaks apart the bonding agent, so now you just have a lot less of it. It doesn't stick properly and will just come off. The pigment itself won't stick. But on watercolor paper, it's different because it actually absorbs in. So the little bit of polymer that's left over, even though you watered it down, it absorbs into the paper. It makes the pigment stick. It sounds like it should be true, right? I'm just talking. I have no idea. We're going to find out. Maybe it's not true. Maybe I'm making this up. But it sounds like it should be true. It could be. It's a possible thing. It's going to look ugly for a while. Just bear with me for a minute because later in the end it kind of works out. But in the beginning, not so much. So stay till the end. I have a very special clip at the end. My wife and I just celebrated our 24-year anniversary, and we went to the Biltmore and did the falconry thing, but I'm not going to tell you what actually happened there. You want to wait and see at the end. It's the most magical thing you've ever seen. Alright, let's get into it. So I have here the Liquitex. It's the professional acrylic wash. Is the small tubes. They're little, like 2 ounces. There's not a lot in there. You can use a lot less than what I'm using here. You don't want to use as much as I'm using. But I was experimenting. I didn't know how much it was going to take from me. But even still, it's just a little dot. It's not a whole lot of paint. And I used a good part of it on here and something else that I was just testing on. So that's just, it's fine. Everything worked out very well. I really like these paints. I like how they come out. And in this application, it's very interesting. So just bear with me on it. And I know it's blasphemy. I'm using a water brush with acrylic ink, but it's the way that I'm using it, it's perfect. It worked out wonderfully. Just be aware that you may ruin your water brush because if you don't get everything out all the way, sometimes that little area where it sucks the air back in will get clogged with paint. And in that case, you can't get it out. If it's acrylic and dries in there, you can't get it out. You may ruin your brush. But it was okay. I had a spare one laying around and I used it. And right now it seems to work fine. So no harm done there. But most people would not do this with a water brush, especially with acrylic paint. So just to give you a little bit of insight here, the book that I'm using is the Field Watercolor Journal. It's the Handbook Field Watercolor Journal. All of a sudden they became very expensive and I don't know why. When I got this, it was one of the cheapest books around and it was on Amazon. It was not that expensive. And it's a 7x10, but it has the fluid watercolor paper. It is not, to my knowledge, it is not the Fluid 100. And it doesn't act like the Fluid 100 necessarily. It's just, I think it's just the fluid watercolor paper, the regular pulp paper. It's acid free, it's cold press. But I've had this book for so long and I just never finished it. I never put anything else in it. I'm trying to use up what I have. So I wanted to use this book and see what I could do with it. And I figured to take this kind of abuse, it not being 100% cotton watercolor paper, and to take the amount of water and the amount of scrubbing, I mean, all you see is me scrubbing back and forth on the whole thing. And it didn't pill, it didn't come up. Sometimes it looks like in the video I see the texture looks like it might have, but I'm looking at the book. Nothing came up. It's fine. Just keep that in mind. It's a great book. I used to love this book. Matter of fact, I loved it so much as soon as I got it, and loved the way that I handle water, that I bought a second one that I've never even opened. I've never opened the cover and even looked at it. But I have to finish this one, and I wasn't going to finish this one because I liked the other one so much. I liked the Etch-a-Sketch book so much, I was going to just stick with that. But I want to finish up some of these sketchbooks before I get anything more. I really don't need to spend any more money than I've already spent. It's just, art is a money pit. Any hobby slash profession slash career that you want to follow, you're going to be spending money. That's just what's going to happen. So my goal now is just to spend less than I have been and see how that works out. Now you can see I put layer after layer after layer. When I first put the paint down, it's almost transparent. And this is acrylic wash. This stuff is solid. You can't see through it if I put it down full strength. But I didn't want to. I wanted to use it like watercolor, build up my layers, and see if it could hold up and create something. And then I went back in. I didn't use regular ink. I wanted to make this a line and wash a little bit, but I wasn't going to use ink. I thought it looked cool to use the Posca acrylic paint pens. So that's what I used in this. And I tried to use the different colors that I actually used in the painting of those pens to maybe give it a little bit more interest. In the end, I really like how it came out. It was something, not that I had this plan the whole time, but I knew roughly what I wanted to do, but I didn't really have a plan for it. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. So I just made it do with what I had, and I think it came out pretty good. So someone asked me a question. I wanted to answer this question. I got this question a while ago, but I just wanted to make sure I gave the right answer the right way. And the question was, can you improve when you're constantly changing mediums or subjects? And I think that's a valid question. I think that's a good question, because if you look at what I do, I'm always using something different. Sometimes watercolor, sometimes acrylic paint, sometimes marker, sometimes color pencil. It's always something different. Can I really improve? Well, my opinion is yes, so long as you keep rotating through them with some similarity. So if you stick with one medium, but you keep changing subjects, then you'll get to learn the medium. And you'll get very good at it, and you'll be able to paint many different subjects with that medium. If you, on the other hand, if you keep changing mediums, but you keep to the same subject, like birds or landscapes, then you'll get good at those subjects no matter what you're using, because you'll still have to make an adjustment for how it's used, but the basic idea of how you draw that thing or paint that thing is relatively the same. You go about it roughly the same way. So I think that you can improve if you're switching mediums all the time, or if you're switching subjects all the time. If you're doing a lot of the different things, like me, I do a lot of different things, and I'm changing mediums and subjects. Maybe I'm not improving as much. I don't really care. I'm having fun, and here's how I look at it. There is a saying. Everyone forgets it. They say the wrong thing, but they say that if you're a jack of all trades, then you're a master of none. But the full saying, you have to take that into account. It says that if you're a jack of all trades, then you're a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, because you can do so many different things. So I just think that if you hone in on what you're doing and you experiment, yes, I use a lot of different mediums, but I always go back to watercolor. I always use ink. It's just those things I always put together. Even when I use marker, I'll use ink, and I'll use the marker the same way I would use the watercolor. It just comes out, it's a different way that you do it, but it's still the same thing. So in my opinion, don't worry about if you need that for your creativity, like you get tired of one thing and it makes you not create, then by all means change. Do something different. do something better or worse, or it doesn't matter, just different than you're already doing, and make sure that you keep the creativity flowing. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure you keep making art, because that's what'll make you better. Just keep making art. Let me know down below if you agree with that or if you disagree with it, what you think about that. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about that kind of subject, so don't worry, whatever you think is what you think. Go ahead and let me know. And I think when you're learning, you have to keep in mind that you're the one that's learning. A lot of times we compare ourselves to other people, how our art looks compared to how their art looks. And it's so individual, because you may not see what that person's seeing. So they're putting down their art the way that they see it. You're trying to put down your art the way that you see it. It may be different. You can't always compare. There's not a problem with comparison. I'm not saying you should never compare, because if someone's doing something and you like it, you're comparing, okay, I'm not getting the result they are. How can I help this? How can I do this? That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is saying my art is terrible and their art is good, so they're a real artist and I'm not a real artist, or I'm not a good artist and they are a good artist. It doesn't matter. Just because someone else is a good artist does not mean that you're not. You're always going to be improving. You're always going to be moving forward from that point. So they're in a different place than you are. You're in the place that you are, and you can't do anything about that. You've got to, either you're going to stop and quit completely, or you're going to move forward. Those are your two options. You can definitely do, even if you doodle a little bit, you're moving forward. So, and that's just good advice no matter what you're looking at. It doesn't matter if you're looking at, what kind of house you live in or what kind of job you have, or you're always going to be moving forward as long as you're consciously doing something to change. So in art, you're consciously creating and you're going to get better. You're going to move forward. And even opinions, like when I say things, I'm a very opinionated little man, and it's not meant to make you feel like if you disagree with me that you're a terrible person. It's just, this is the way I see things. I'm just sharing that with you. You may see things completely different. You may say, no, I have to compare myself. It's the only thing that drives me. And that may be you. I don't like that. I'm not a competitive person at all. I have not one single competitive molecule cell in my body at all. I'm not competitive. I compete with myself, but I could care less what anybody else does in any different situation. It doesn't matter. That's why I'm terrible in a game of sports, any kind of sports or game. I don't care. I'm not trying to be better than anybody else in that regard. I'm just trying to do the best I can. And that's it. That's the only thing I look at. So I'm not a very competitive person, and I usually, like, people, oh, you want to play a game? Not really. I don't like games. I don't like to play games. I don't like, board games or just any sport games or anything like that. When I was younger, I liked to do some of those things, but it was more about being around friends than anything when I was younger. Now, I don't care. It doesn't do anything for me. Which is why just about everything I do is a singular thing. I don't like to, I create art. I sit alone in a room and quiet, and I create my art. Or I go outside. There's some nature around you, but for the most part it's quiet, and I create. Play my guitar by myself. Never been a part of a band. Don't want to be. I like to create by myself. That's just me. That's just who I am. That doesn't have to be everybody. I can only speak from my point of view and how my brain works. You have to speak from your point of view and how your brain works, and maybe those things are more motivating for you, and that's what helps you then do that. Who cares if it's not what the other person doesn't do? Don't worry about that stuff. You just look at yourself. Okay, so this came out pretty decent, and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Let me know if you think this is something you're going to try and do. Especially if you're putting in just a light wash in the background, but you don't want it to move, I suggest either using the Inktense blocks or using watered down acrylic paint, because It will not move. You can put the watercolor over it still. There's enough there for it to grab and still absorb, and it doesn't seal the surface. You're doing okay here. So if you hung on till the end, thank you so much. I've got a special treat for you right here. I'm going to show you. So I don't really know what this video is about or if you can even hear me, but this is pretty and I wanted to put it in the video. Alright, so here I am just sitting here. What's coming? Do you think it's a bird? Do you think maybe there's going to be a bird landing on that glove right there? What is it going to be? I don't know. Oh my goodness, what is that? Is that the most magical thing you've ever seen in your life? There's not many other birds I'd rather have land on my glove. That owl was so beautiful and so magical. I loved every second of it and a little bit more. And then I did fly the Harris Hawk twice, which I absolutely love. My favorite, it's not really a hawk. I know it's a buzzard, what they call a buteo, but it's a hawk in the US. We call them hawks, and the Harris Hawk is amazing. It's a beautiful bird. One of my favorites. Very even-tempered, very easy to handle. I love this bird. Well, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm going to play you out here with a little bit of music so you finish watching this. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Bye.